which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and at this time, I want to have a moment of silence for Mrs. Connor and her family, who recently passed away. Thank you. Audience input on agenda items. Consent agenda. We have the amendments, which are at your table there. Consideration of the school board meeting minutes for June 17th, 2025. Consideration of claims dated July 15th, 2025. Consideration of donations. Consideration of professional development request. Consideration of resolutions to transfer $144,000 from education fund to operations fund. Memory full.
We are live streaming as a reminder to the board, so we've got a copy going of everything.
I want to recognize a couple of the donations before we vote on this. Whitetails Unlimited donated $5,000 to the Blackford Junior Senior High School archery team. Smith Insurance donated $100 to the BIS Field Day, and IU Health donated $200 to the Blackford Junior Senior High School Academic Honors Program. And finally, Blackford Wind Energy donated $500 to the BIS Camp Invention. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Action items. At this time,
Can I make a recommendation that we
Yes.
cover all of the A through F, which are all considerations of hires, just in one vote as opposed to separately? Is there any objections or anybody have any issues with any of that?
I do not. So we have a motion to accept all of these by Scott Malott. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Jimmy.
I'll second. Okay. All in favor? This is A through F. Motion carries 4-0. Personnel report. Mr. Yenser.
Yeah, we've got a couple of resignations there, an internal transfer from Beth Armstrong from our custodial staff to the instructional assistant staff, and some ECA appointments of folks that have.
Any questions on the personnel report? A motion to approve. I make a motion to approve. Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Consideration of the 25-26 Blackford County School Employment Manual.
Just a few minor changes in the memo that was shared with the board pack, allowing hourly folks to use that would not be able to work on a school cancellation day to use an illness day if they have those available to keep their pay going. There's some of our employees that have jobs dependent on us being in session, lose a day of work there. So that's one. Just some updated technology use protocols. One thing I did want to draw to your attention real quickly is the classified pay schedule. We will update that for all areas in November after teacher negotiations are done. But we wanted to add a new rate of $23 per hour for candidates with associate's degree in early childhood or a related field. With the expansion of our preschool, we're looking up to level up that staff and try to find, folks with associate's degrees in early childhood. There's a new route in the manual we're going to run some kids over to the Marion Ivy Tech campus this year. So there's a new route in the manual that's not listed in the summary sheet. And then there's a bus driver route for the Muncie Area Career Center, inadvertently got deleted from the manual last year. And our friends at the State Board of Accounts found that and gave us an audit finding on that. So we wanted to get that back in the rate. So those are key updates.
Any questions on the employment manual update? We have a motion to approve.
So move.
I'll second. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Now we have a consideration of a resolution approving the sale of real estate, Mr. Yenser.
The Southside Baseball Field saga continues. We, if you remember, we gave that to the city. The city tried to develop a project. The project didn't go through. They gave it back to us. There was a small lot that the city actually owned that was the parking lot for the old Babe Ruth field. In order to sell the property, for it to make any sense at all, that now the city gave us the field, which all of that paperwork is now done. This just authorizes me formally to be the disposing agent, to start to work with the attorney and real estate agents to move forward with the sale and disposition of the old Southside field.
Do you have any questions on the resolution approving the sale of real estate for the Southside field? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Consideration of Pride Mark invoice for the secured entryway at the Blackford Junior Senior High School.
Yes, this is just progress invoice. There's 169,000 is current payment due. Just a quick update on that project. Phase 1 is substantially complete. We're inhabiting that. There's a air handling unit still out on a truck somewhere, or still not delivered. That's still about 3 weeks out. They've set up some temporary air conditioning as administrators and secretaries are coming back to work. Phase 2 is the remodel of the current office and the guidance office. The date for substantial completion is next Friday. It looks like we're going to miss that by probably a week. So we're going to be right up against the start of school. Counselors are set up out of the library and the library conference room to start the year if we run into that. But they've moved pretty quickly. The office space is great. Everything in the phase 2 is framed in, drywall's up, everything's mudded. They're starting to paint, but it's going to be tight on the timeline.
You'd say what happened, because they were ahead of schedule there.
We sprinted. When they got into phase 2, there were some delays in the delivery of some of the pre-manufactured door frames and those types of things. And just when you get in there, we had asbestos abatement that was about 3 days late, a combination of a couple things. When I say we're going to miss it, we're going to miss it by like 4 days, which right now doesn't seem like that bad of a loss. Yeah. But it's tied up against the start of school.
Any other questions on the Pride Mark invoice? We have a motion to approve.
So move.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Next up, consideration of the JR flooring quote, Mr. Yenser.
2 quotes. I sent this to the board and I got 1 or 2 responses. So I just wanted to bring it to public meeting and let you guys decide. The first quote is just for the business office to replace the carpet there. We have mold issue. We've got the water issue in there corrected. We've got a spot cut out. That needs to be done. So quote 1, and that's under the threshold of what I normally bring to you guys. It's around 5,000. I wouldn't normally talk to you about that, but it's out here. I might let you know we're doing it, but it's out here. So I always want to try to be cautious about spending. Quote 2 would be to take Beth's entryway office, the entryway office where Michelle Gross sits, and then to go all the way down that hallway and just update that carpet. I'm going to recommend you do quote 1, but I wanted to give quote 2 as an option just to update the entry areas. All this carpet dates back to 1999, and It looks like it. Yeah.
Why not recommend 2 then?
I'm just always cautious about spending money. Somewhere along the line, I think it was Mr. Huggins, I just tried not to spend money out here. But I'm comfortable with it. It could be replaced. I just always cautious.
As far as square footage, are they doing twice as much square footage
Yeah.
since that's what it is?
If you look at it, yeah, the 2 offices and then the length of that hallway all the way back to these bathrooms.
I think if you don't do it all, it's gonna look worse in the hallway and other areas. My recommendation would be to do all of it.
Yeah.
And I would agree. I mean, I really don't want to spend a lot of money out here because I would just soon eventually like to see this building closed.
Yep.
But I'm in agreement. If we're gonna be here for a few years, might as well just do it and get it done instead of. I guess I agree with Nikki. As far as that.
So we have a motion for option 2 by Nikki, seconded by Scott. Is that what I'm
I'll
hearing?
take that. Yeah, I'll take that.
All in favor? 4-0.
See, now you can say I told them not to spend that much money and they made me. I can hear it
I gave
already.
the board the choice.
Yeah, just spend the money like we got it.
It'll look nice.
Yes.
It'll look nice coming in.
Yeah.
Consideration, preschool director position, Mr. Minzer.
So we've had conversations about our blooming preschool program over the last couple months and last couple of years. In the last 2 years, we've grown from 2 to 5 classrooms. Shaylee Myron is an SLP in the district. We pulled back a little bit of her caseload to allow her to help manage the preschool position or the preschool growth. There is a ton of bureaucratic paperwork with On My Way Pre-K. I was looking at Leslie because that was something in her building. And the CCDF vouchers, but they're so vital to our community to create cost affordable options for our students in need to attend preschool. Shaylee has done a fantastic job with that. She's increased the revenue to this. Last year, our revenue exceeded our cost by about $70,000 for the preschool program. That goes back into the education fund and helps all of our programming. We would like to, what I'm requesting is 2 parts on this. One is to adopt formally the job description of preschool director as we move forward. I think there's probably going to be a day when we grow to 6 classrooms as we have availability. And then Shaylee particularly is requesting a move to the administrative benefit package. I shared this with the board a while ago. She's not requesting any increase in her salary amount, just the difference of the insurance. So currently, all the teachers get a certain contribution defined by the teacher's contract of what their insurance is. Administrators get their pick of the insurance packages paid at 98.25% of the cost of the premium. So it's significantly more contribution from the district to their insurance packages. It's a difference of about $10,000 on insurance additional that the corporation will be paying. Move and just recognize her work. I got a call, and I'll just kind of recap it from Mr. Jones about it. Like, he asked me to compare it to the other administrators. She doesn't have, she evaluates the preschool teachers and aides. So she doesn't have an evaluation load like our other administrators would. But I would say the bureaucratic paperwork portion of her job in some ways is higher in terms of dealing with the state and these vouchers, getting parents enrolled in this. So I feel like it's appropriate. I don't feel like it's an unrealistic ask. It wouldn't necessarily make her an administrator, but move her benefits to administrative package.
How common is that?
So it's, as we've seen, especially since On My Way Pre-K grow, districts that are committing to preschool are doing that. So for example, Winchester is a district. We just lost one of our best teachers last year, Amanda Earhart, to go be the preschool director at Winchester because they have similar. Jay County has a similar position based on the number of but not every school does. Some school just folds under the responsibility of another administrator. So
and you might not be able to answer this. What made us jump from 2 to 5? I mean, everything else has been declining as far as our student numbers. Now, all of a
just the
sudden,
explosion of the On My Way pre-K and the CCDF availability. So what that means is we have about 65% of our kids that, because of those two programs, their families pay nothing for preschool. And because really Shaylee's leadership in this area, as so assigned, she went through that. So what happens a lot with those folks is those parents will come in and she will one-on-one counsel them through the process and then get them enrolled in that. But the explosion, there's a need, there's a need within our community for high quality preschool care. But the explosion's been, we are the only no cost option for a lot of our families.
are we getting much from out of district, or is all this in district stuff?
I do not believe currently that we have anyone in our program that is outside of the district.
I guess one of the things I'm wondering is, are we going to see a gradual, we're going to need more sections for first grade than second grade? As this group moves up, or?
I don't believe so. So it's actually just kind of the opposite. So we've had, if you think about our kindergartens over the last couple of years, we've ranged between 5 and 7 sections of kindergarten every year. So this is actually like adding a 14th grade to the school district, essentially. The more of those kids we get in high quality preschool programming, and we have high quality programs, Troy's program, the program at Helen Lieber, but outside of those two spots, there just aren't any options, within the county. So it really, I don't think will impact our future growth, but where the benefit for us as we continue to grow high quality preschool is we're getting more and more 4-year-olds into a structured preschool setting.
Yeah, I think definitely think there's a need for full day. And the price is hard to beat. And what is it if you
It's $270 a month,
if you don't qualify, right?
$270 a month, which is still very affordable.
Right. So like Helen Lieber right now,
Yeah.
I have a grandson there. It's $240 a week.
Yeah. So we're trying to create an affordable option. The other thing in the back of your mind, when we say 5 classrooms, we cap these at 14. If you've been around 4-year-olds lately.
Okay. That's right. We're really losing the numbers. And I'm like, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
We cap our kindergartens very aggressively, very low for our area, like 18 to 19 is our cap for kindergarten. It's very common in other districts to see that be 22 or 23, but with 4-year-olds, and that's actually, Leslie, you would know this better than me, but the requirements of On My Way and that there's a limit.
I think it's 14 or 15.
It could be one more than that, but our classroom limit, it's governed by them. I think 15 is the cap. I think you're right, but they're smaller classrooms. They're very, very active classrooms.
Let me ask this question as well. So we're at 5 sections. Is that why we're bringing it to a director's position? If we drop back down to 2, are we talking about getting rid of the director's position, or where is that somewhere?
I think that would be a conversation. This is, to use the word organic, this is occurring because we've seen the growth. I don't think in our community, given this structure, as long as On My Way pre-K and CCDF monies exist in the state budget, and that is a program that we can offer in our community, I think it'll be full from here out. I think there are 50 some seats, and we put something out. We have 2 seats available once we went to the 5th classroom. But last year at 4 and the previous year at 2, we had long waiting lists every year. Again, back to just what Troy said, given the availability and the proximity, the fact that we're running a full day, it's on the school schedule for parents. It's a very convenient and very cost-effective option. I don't anticipate. Now, we always have bubbles. There may be a year we go down to 4,
This be a year by year, or is this I didn't see the.
I would anticipate the creation of the position and this job description to exist, until we would decide and for Shaylee specifically in this role and the move to administrative benefits. And you could sort these out on motion if you wanted. I'm asking you to consider two things: the creation of the position and then the movement to the administrative. If you wanted to treat those two issues separately, you could do that by motion as well.
I didn't know, like the contract, it would be yearly, just like the.
This would essentially.
It's not like a 3-year contract.
No,
Like
this
we
would
would
be
do
year
some
to year
year.
on that. Yeah.
I guess I would like to recommend that we separate them out, that we do one, a motion for the position itself, and then two, a motion to agree that we will pay Shaylee on an individual as far as an administrator for her benefits. If I'm understanding everything correct. I just think, I'd hate to get an automatic, something like, I guess I don't want confusion as we move down the road.
Right. So would you like me then, moving forward, to bring the consideration of her administrative benefit package, assuming you were to vote that through, would you like me to bring that annually, or as long as she's in the role, would this be the expectation going forward?
I would say, me personally, I would say as long as she's in this role, we're voting on approving of that. But if we change directors, I think we need to address either the pay or the benefits
Right.
package.
And I think to your point, if something were to change in the landscape, let's say on my way pre-K got cut in a state budget deficit and we didn't have that, we went down to 2 classrooms, I think we would need to bring back that as well. And I'd bring that back to you if we did.
So do I need to re-verbalize that, or we got it?
Got it.
Okay.
So we have a motion to approve the preschool director position.
So move.
I'll second. Any questions on that? All in favor? 4-0. Do we have a motion to approve Shaylee Myron's, this preschool director positions, insurance being paid, administration, same as administrators? Link.
I'll second.
All in favor? That carries 4-0, and that will be year to year here forward. Okay. Next up, item N, consideration of Barton Co. invoice from the Rainy Day Fund.
This is a progress invoice on the Performing Arts Center work. Coming from Rainy Day, again, just once we sell bonds, we plan to adopt a resolution to reimburse funds.
Any questions on the motion to approve the invoice from Barton Co. Villa? I make a motion to approve. We have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor? 4-0. Item N, consideration of the GME testing invoice. Also,
Just ground foundation testing in the site for the Performing Arts Center.
this approved, did they approve it or do we know yet?
We have not, as of my last progress meeting, we have not got the sample or got the results from this. I did authorize this work. They had 2 competing bids. This was the lower of the bid to keep the ground moving. So they always, whenever you're doing large construction, they're looking at soil conditions and impacting those things. So,
We had to have a lot of soil brought in for where we built out of the church.
yeah, Barton Coville presented me with 2 options. This was the lower cost, but still highly recommended to do this testing.
We have a motion to approve the GME testing invoice.
So move.
Second. I'll second. All in favor? 4-0. That brings us up to consideration of school board policy updates. Miss Leslie Mold.
Welcome, Mrs. Mold. This is her first board meeting.
Got a very exciting task to bring policy procedure.
All right, so there was a document that Mr. Henser shared out last week. I tried to kind of give you the Cliff Note version of each one of these, but I thought I would highlight a few. And then certainly if there are others that you want to ask questions about, we can discuss those. Just a reminder that this is the first reading only tonight, so no vote tonight, but we'll vote on these at the August meeting. The first one I thought I would mention is the C-175. That's an attendance policy. They've changed some of the attendance laws. This past year, they went K through 6, and now they're expanding up through 12th grade. The first thing there is state fair absences. Those are exempt absences, which basically students are not penalized if they're in good standing and showing at the state fair. It specifies some conditions under which habitually truant students can participate in extracurriculars. Mainly that's if they improve their attendance is one of the big stipulations there, then they could rejoin their extra and co-curricular. Like if the parent notice, there's currently a requirement to notify parents if their students have unexcused absences, so many. And so that's just expanding up to 12th grade. It was only up through grade 6 last year. And it gives schools a little bit more time to hold attendance conferences that are required. And then schools are not, by law, able to suspend or expel students who are absent, which that doesn't make a whole lot of sense anyways, but I'm sure it happened. So that's the attendance. The anti-bullying, the main change, that's C-200 right under that. There's just some new requirements for administrators to communicate with parents. So I know in the past, bullying is always a big topic that we get calls on. So hopefully this will help with the communication, might keep fewer of those questions coming to administrators and maybe to you as well. The last one I thought I would highlight is the religious release time, E-200. That's a new policy. All the rest of these are revisions, but this is a new policy. There are specific requirements for schools to release students if their parents request that to happen in writing so they can get religious instruction. So it's considered a release time. It's not an absence. Schools are required to work with the religious agency. We would cooperate with them. And there's a lot of times. So up to 120 minutes per week for an elementary student. It's up to 1 class period per week for secondary students. And so that is a new policy for you to consider for next time. Those are the ones I thought were definitely wanted to mention, but if you have questions about any of the others, we can certainly talk about those too.
Just a reminder, all of our policy revisions are driven partner with Church Hit on Antrim, and they'll go through the legislative session and they'll send us these updates. And so real quickly, I'll just kind of postscript the one on release time. If you're familiar in surrounding counties, there's a very strong group called Likewise that is very present in Adams and Wells County, and maybe, I'm not sure if they're in Jay County or not, and maybe there as well, where it's a scripted curriculum, and they typically partner with the community church, and they work with the schools to do that. And that's taking place in many places around the state. So getting a policy on the book that's tied to Indiana law to allow us to govern those conversations if they go. Likewise, the corporate has reached out to me one time, but I've never really received anything from a local church that's looking to partner. But they just were making me aware that they're looking to come to this area eventually.
I do have a couple questions on, first on the attendance. I know I read something about the 10 days. Doesn't matter. You have 10 days. Doesn't matter if there's a doctor's note.
Those are,
You miss 10 days, that's it.
those are for, so if students have, 5 absences within a rolling 10-day period. So you can imagine tracking that is a real challenge. Then you are required to hold those conferences, and you used to have to do it within 5 days, and now they've increased them to 10.
So is there like a 10-day max that you're allowed to miss? Like last year, it was 10 days
10 days per,
per
Yeah,
semester.
yes, yeah.
But doctor's notes, those and counseling and all of that was excused. And then the new one, it says it's not excused.
There's definitively some mixed messaging out there. We've got 2 or 3 calls over the last week, and we've
all over.
yeah, and seeing those things. And so there's still got to be some common sense approach to how you administrate that. If a kid is on a doctor's note, that's always going to be an absence that's excused from school. It looks like there's some changes in the law. I got to be honest with you. We are working with our administrative team on Monday to go back through this with our handbook to check the language. So what you see here is the policy that's suggested from Church on Antrim that's aligned to the new law. So let us dial in with our administrative team. This is a topic for us on Monday to make sure that communication is there. But whatever's out there has got parents
I
around.
understand why. I had a senior who just graduated. He got hired at the Dollar General Distribution Center, went to his orientation. They told him he can miss 10 days. And so his third day, he decided to take off because he can miss 10 days.
We've got days.
Yeah, and I think they treat it like they do school.
Yeah.
Because school was really flexible, and
Yeah.
miss 10 days.
It's, well, I hear it both ways though. I mean, we've sat across the desk from 7th graders that say, this day doesn't count towards my points, which is language they would hear, from a parent, so
That's where it's learning.
I don't believe anything in the current law would cause us to do any disciplinary action on a kid on a medical. With this legal update, there's no disciplinary action that's going to occur for a kid that misses a day that's covered by a doctor's note.
Right.
So,
And it doesn't make a lot of sense to call a parent who's already called you,
yeah,
5 times and told you got their child sick. Oh, you need to come in for a conference. So
Right.
it's a little bit gray because the way it reads.
it sounds like, based on those comments, we need to make sure that we have some strong messaging after our administrative meeting about attendance and make sure that we get that out to the community here before the school year starts. One of the parents called was ready to withdraw their kid to homeschool because they thought they would go to jail if their kid missed 10 days. I don't think there's anywhere near the capacity in our legal system to make something like that happen.
The second question I had was on the anti-bullying, because it says that we will notify the parents before school's out on an alleged. So if someone alleges,
So
we
you
have to notify. So how do we, I don't know that, how are we going to make sure that that's happening? That's going to be a tough one.
That's another topic we're talking to principals about on Monday.
They have
But
to
you
take that
till the
serious.
end of the following school day.
Okay.
So if somebody comes to you at noon and says, hey, I'm being bullied by so-and-so, by the end of the next school day, you have to notify both parents. So, it gives you a little bit of time, but from experience, sometimes it takes a long time to investigate and to call all the kids in that you need to call in to really figure out and investigate it properly. So you're going to be booking to meet that timeline.
Then we've got to notify.
And a key distinction in that is the legal definition and the policy definition of bullying is not consistent necessarily with what,
Yeah.
a kid thinks they're bullied if one kid says one thing to them, that isn't the legal definition. It's repeated, targeted, that type of behavior,
So the communication to the both parents could just be, we have this allegation
Yes.
and we are
Right.
investigating.
Yes,
Yes.
Period.
yes,
And then once you wrap it up,
Then our obligation.
yes.
once you wrap up your investigation, then if you wrap it up on Wednesday, you have to then communicate with both sets of parents by the end of the day on Thursday, that this is what we found, we've wrapped up the investigation.
Question.
Other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Those will be voted on next meeting. Mr. Yenser, public finance presentation.
Okay, we have with us Mr. Chad Blackcock from Steeple Public Finance. I've talked with folks from his group and with Chad. Chad's presented many things that I've been to over the last couple of years, but I wanted to bring him in and bring their group in just to talk to the board potentially about the bond issuance this fall. There's a little different approach, and Chad, I'll let you kind of talk us through that and kind of talk through your background that the board may want to consider as we look at the potentially issuing the large bond yet this fall for the Performing Arts Center. So Chad, that's a little bit of a lead in. You can talk about what you guys do and your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me and spending a few times listening to what we do and how we support schools. I guess my kind of elevator pitch about Steeple is that we really help. We work with public K-12 schools all over just in the state of Indiana. And we really support them in the operational, capital planning, and financial side of running the organization. And we really do that in a couple different ways. Let me see here.
Okay.
There we go. So before I get into Steeple, I'll talk a little bit about myself, and that kind of leads into some of the support that we give to schools. I grew up in a little town called Monrovia, southwest of Indianapolis, school district about the size of Blackford County, actually. Currently live in Plainfield. I was a teacher for about 6 years in Plainfield, Indiana. And then after getting my MBA, I got into the finance and operational side of schools. I spent 2 years in Vincennes Community Schools down south in Knox County as their director of finance and operations. And then I was 9 years in Franklin Township, which is a Marion County school, as their CFO and COO. I was a client of Steeple when I was a CFO and COO. And then I joined their team in 2017. We work with, there's 290 public schools in the state of Indiana. We currently work with around 120 of them. And I travel all over the state on a daily basis. Really kind of some of the things here that I help schools with: the capital planning, helping with the budget. More and more schools are seeing the, I guess the need for having more long range planning. And especially on the financial side, instead of just budgeting on kind of a year-to-year basis, budgeting 4 to 5 years out, and always kind of understanding what's coming at us. And so understanding financial decisions we make today, how are those going to impact us really down the road? So kind of everything there that you see are things that we help school districts with, which I think Chad's seen me present on some of those things. This slide is just really a little bit about Steeple. Steeple, our corporate office is in St. Louis, Missouri. We are a publicly traded company. We're pretty much have offices in about every state. Our office is in downtown Indianapolis, and we're a public finance office. We're a division of Steeple, and we just focus on K-12 public entity, governmental entity financing and budgeting. That map kind of shows where some of our different offices are. We have another branch of Steeple that focuses on wealth management for individuals, organizations, things like that. I always think it's good to kind of give some comparison to, in your area up here. Some of our clients are Bluffton Harrison, North Adams, Liberty Perry, Northern Wells, Monroe Central, Frankton LaPel. Those are some of our clients who are kind of in your area. So let me kind of switch over to really the bond side, the capital financing side. We'll talk about that part first. So you guys, to this point, have worked with Baker Tilly as your municipal advisor when it comes to any kind of a public financing or bond project. And what this shows is that kind of the 1 through 15 are the different really kind of high level parts of issuing municipal bonds. And the X would represent who's really ultimately kind of in charge or leading that particular agenda item. So, like in number 1, when it comes to the planning and the modeling of a municipal bond, really the issuer, the financial advisor, and the underwriter are involved in that. So you can just kind of see down through there. So you guys as a school district are obviously the issuer. Baker Tilly is a registered financial advisor. So you can see really what they would be in charge of. Stiefel is what we call a broker-dealer underwriting firm. So we would fall under the term of negotiated underwriter. So you can see what our role would be in a municipal financing project. You guys have historically issued your municipal bonds in what we call a competitive underwriting. So there's 2 different ways to issue municipal bonds. You can do a negotiated underwriting, or you can do a competitive underwriting. And I'm going to show you here in a second that historically you guys have done competitive underwritings. So this slide shows you going back to 2015. Sorry, I'm an old teacher, so I always have to move up to the board and point to things. So this would be when the bonds were sold. This would be the par amount of the bonds. We've got the name of the bond issue here, and then the bid type. So the 2015 bond issue that you did, you actually did it negotiated, and then all these 4 you took through the competitive process. This particular column shows you anytime that a governmental entity issues municipal bonds, you have to have an underwriter firm. So you have to have a firm like Stiefel, because we are the entity that gets the bonds sold to the investor and then gets the dollars back to the school corporation, okay? When you do a bond issue in a competitive style, like you've done the last 4 bond issues, you are still hiring an underwriter and you are paying the underwriter a fee, but the underwriter is randomly chosen on the day the competitive bid goes out. So it could be an underwriter in Texas, it could be an underwriter in Fort Wayne, it could be an underwriter in Illinois. It's whoever chooses on that particular day to bid on the bonds. And so you're hiring an underwriter and you're paying them a fee. However, you are not getting really any upfront services from that underwriter. Because our team is local and we're in Indiana, when schools bring us on as a negotiated underwriter, and negotiated purely means that we're negotiating the fee up front, is that we are then part of the team. So all the upfront work of working with the board, working with Chad, and the upfront planning to make sure we're hitting the tax rate, the levy you want to hit, all of those types of things up front. With other schools that we work with in a negotiated fashion, we're part of that team up front in all the planning and all the construction meetings. Then it just so happens on the day that we're selling the bonds, we're the ones selling the bonds to the investor for the school district and getting the money back, versus hiring a random underwriter from whoever happens to bid on the bonds in that particular thing. So what I wanted to show you here, this column represents the fee that you have paid to the underwriter. And this would be, our fees are calculated as a percentage of $1,000 of bonds. So the $5.95 is on every $1,000 of bonds. So you paid $40,000, $549, when you did this negotiated underwriter to whichever underwriter helped you with that process. The 9.9 million, you paid 77,000. So you can kind of see the total amount that you paid to that underwriter when you issued those bonds. Down here, the average underwriter's fee on average on the is $7.66. The average negotiated, obviously you only had one negotiated there, is $5.95. And then the average competitive is $8.08. And so we just kind of put down there, we normally work with schools on about a fee of about $4.50. So I guess the moral of my story in this particular slide is, in a competitive fashion, you're still hiring an underwriter and you're paying that underwriter a fee. However, the other option would be to do a negotiated type of sale. You're still paying a fee, but as you can see, on average, you're going to pay a lower fee in a competitive style or in a negotiated style versus a competitive style. So I'll pause there. And a lot of times that information, people have questions. So if you have a question, feel free to ask.
So what is it you guys do differently? You can be $1.50 cheaper.
Yep. So what's interesting, because you always kind of think that if I'm doing something competitive where I'm competitively bidding out paper towels or bonds, you automatically think if I'm doing it competitive, I'm getting the best fee, right? I'm getting the best price. That's why we do a competitive process. But what's interesting about municipal bonds is that on the day of sale, when you're doing a competitive bond issue, and let's say you have three underwriter firms that are bidding on it, and I'm going to talk about kind of the back end mechanics. What they're doing is they're getting on the day of competitive bid. They had no idea that Blackford County Schools was issuing a bid 2 or 3 days before. They're getting your bid on the day of the bid. And that underwriter, who's receiving bids from all over the country, they are looking at Blackford County Schools and they have an hour and a half to 2 hours to respond. They usually get it at 9 and they've got to respond by 11. So they're looking at that and they're going through and they're looking at Bloomberg and they're looking at the market and they're saying, what they have to do behind the scenes is they have to give you an interest rate that they're going to pay you. And then they're going to take those bonds that they're going to buy from you and they're going to put them into their inventory in the bank. Then what they then have to do is turn around and sell the bonds on the public market. So what happens usually is they don't know if they can turn around and sell the bonds on the public market and if they're going to make money or lose money on Blackford County Schools bonds. It's just the mechanics of how it all works. So a lot of times what will happen is on the competitive style, they will charge you a much higher fee, and that fee equates to a risk premium. So that underwriter is taking on risk because they're buying your bonds and they're putting them into their inventory, and then they hope that they can turn around and sell them on the public market, okay? So they're putting in a risk premium that kind of pads it a little bit in case they can't sell the bonds on the public market for the interest rate that they bought them from you, okay? So that's in a competitive style. In a negotiated style, because you've hired us or an underwriting firm up front, and they've been part of the project all along, our underwriter that sells our bonds for us is at our corporate office in St. Louis. His name's Jim Pratt. If we were to start working with you guys and we knew you had a bond issue coming up in, let's say, 3 months, we would get in touch with Jim. We have an internal system. Jim knows that Blackford County Schools bonds are going to be sold on August 13th of 2025. And it's a $5 million bond issue, let's say. As we get closer to that date, we can start feeding Jim information, and his sales staff, that's a huge office of sales staff, they are going to start to pre-market Blackford County bonds in advance of August 13th and the $5 million. So on the day that we actually sell the bonds, for the most part, we've already talked to investors, we've already talked to mutual funds, we've talked to insurance companies. And we kind of know going into August 13th on the sale date, we pretty much know where they're buying, what interest rate they're buying at. And that all leads up to the fact we don't have a lot of risk because we've already pretty much pre-sold and pre-marketed the bonds. So we don't have to charge the school district, as any underwriter would, any kind of a risk premium because there's little risk on our side. Therefore, the fee that you're paying, really you're paying the fee for Chad to help you out, the rest of the people in my office. You're actually paying a fee that pays our salaries and our overhead and those types of things. So there's no risk premium really built into that, so we can have a much lower fee. And every underwriter really kind of works that way. It's just the mechanics of the competitive versus the negotiated. So you just have to decide really, would you want your underwriter team, a team of Chad, and we have 4 or 5 other guys in our office, to be part of your financing team up front. And the fact that you already work with Baker Tilly, we don't replace Baker Tilly. We are just the underwriter that is working on the financing along with Baker Tilly. We have several clients that we work with Baker Tilly on. Remember, we're 2 different firms that serve in 2 different ways. And you've always hired an underwriter. You've just done it on the back end through the competitive side. Now, if you would choose, you could have our team up front working alongside all of you, coming to board meetings and helping. It's actually, I mean, if you look historically at what you've paid on the competitive fee before, and we're proposing a $4.50 fee, it's actually saving. You could hire Stiefel as a negotiated underwriter, and based on in the past what you've paid as a fee, it's actually going to save you money. So you're adding a professional that actually costs you less money than what you've paid historically in the past, which can be very confusing, and I understand. But I think the thing to remember that on the competitive bid, the fee goes more towards risk premium for the underwriter firm versus services. So I'll kind of pause there to see, or Chad, if there's anything.
So I guess if it's cheaper to do it this way, why wouldn't Baker Tilly, for our reasons, have just done this in the past? I guess I question that about Baker Tilly then.
My understanding in talking with Luke and Matt and Mike is that there's differences in how they are structured. They're not structured for the underwriters. They're not underwriters of any one product.
But they've got to know if they do this all the time that it's going to save the corporation money in the long run. So why would they not present that to us? That's a concern I have. I mean, we've done, not a lot of work. We're talking a substantial amount of money that Baker Tilly cost us, I would say.
And they've worked
I
with
think
some,
that's a fair
they've worked
question.
with some of these schools.
What's that?
So, and I know Baker Tilly's worked with some of these
Yep.
other schools.
They work with a lot of schools. There are some schools that Stiefel completely replaces Baker Tilly, and there are some that they continue to work with Baker Tilly. And really the reason, as I've continued to take meetings with Stiefel and grown my knowledge in this space, with the size of this potential bond issuance, the reduction of fee is significant, and I felt like it was telling. But Mr. Malott, I understand your question.
That's a concern. I think Baker Tilly should come explain to us whether they have Blackford screwed us over in the past.
I
know that's not the appropriate way to say it, but I mean, really, there's money I feel like that we've spent that we didn't have to spend, according to what he's telling us.
Yeah. Potentially. Yep.
And there's no, and I will say the other part of a financing, a big part of it is the interest rate. Because you guys want the lowest interest rate. I will say in our office, we track anytime a bond issue is sold competitive and anytime a bond issue is sold negotiated. And I think, like, if Luke or some of the other guys in my office were here today, they would agree. There's really no comparison to show that, hey, a competitive bid always gets you a lower interest rate, or that a negotiated bid always gets you a lower interest rate. Because the fee is just one part of the equation, right? Because the interest rate is also a factor here. But I will say that from my standpoint, the interest rate in a municipal financing is really more driven by the market. The bonds are sold to investors. Investors react to the market and what treasuries are doing and different things like that. And so on any given day, you could sell a bond issue competitive, or you could sell a bond issue negotiated, and you could get different interest rates, but they're going to be somewhat aligned. They're not going to be a full 100 basis points different or anything like that. So that's kind of the other part of the equation. And from just to kind of reiterate, from what I see, there's nothing to say you're always going to get a lower interest rate competitive, but you're always not going to get a lower rate negotiated. In my opinion, it comes back to the fee. And in today's world of running school finance and as complicated as it's become, I think we have more and more schools saying, hey, I value Stiefel as a team and bringing their knowledge on. And if I can do that for a little lower fee, let's bring them on as a partner and move forward with, with them as a professional team. So I think that's just to kind of sum it. This slide just shows, we went back and pulled all Indiana K-12 bond issues and the underwriter fees, competitive versus negotiated. So what I'm showing you here is that if it's a bond issue from 0 to 9.9 million, the average competitive fee, if you get a competitive, is $7.92. 2019 through 24, the average negotiated fee is $7.25. If it's a bond issue ranging between 10 million and 24.9 million, the average competitive fee is $7.59. The average negotiated fee is $5.84. If it's a bond issue over 25 million, the average competitive fee is $7.83, and the average negotiated fee is $4.92. So we like to show that to clients to also show the bond issue size really doesn't seem to matter on average. The competitive fees in all three of those ranges are just always higher than the negotiated fee. And that's all K-12 bond issues 19 through 20.
Do you have a slide that shows similar to this, it shows the interest rate that maybe all the other schools are getting versus what you guys are getting?
I don't have a slide in here, but I could.
Example, because like you said, if it's a 1% difference on the interest rate.
Yeah, absolutely. That could make up for the fee difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what Baker Tilly is going to tell us, is they did it because of interest rate.
They're going to argue that the competitive process will land a lower rate. That's what they're going to. Interest rate. Yeah.
So what's the data on that say?
Let me see if I can put something together so I can have actual numbers to show you that. Like I could probably go back and we could pull some recent bond issues that were sold competitive versus negotiated. The size, of course, you have to take in consideration that the size of that bond issue, the credit rating of the school and different things like that. But maybe we could find some comparisons that are close to a Blackford County size credit rating. And I'll send something to Chad that he could share with you guys. Because I do think that you have to consider that as well, because that's the other part of the equation.
Yeah. Really, the goal of this evening was to just increase board awareness that a different model exists. As I've spoke with, peers that have utilized Stiefel in this, there's some comfort. I asked him to specifically speak about the underwriting. There's some things that they do that are a little bit different that he mentioned on the opening slide about long-term capital planning, long-term fiscal planning. It's different than Baker Tilly that I think that we could potentially benefit from as a district, as we continue to look at the impacts of SEA1 and everything that's coming. What I'd ask the board to do as you kind of look at this information, and when Chad relays more information to me, as we get back into our next work session, I had sent a text and we need to talk about that as our next order of business. I'd just like to get some feedback and develop a stronger list, maybe of questions, reactionary questions for Stiefel and for Baker Tilly as well, about moving forward. As Chad mentioned, and I understand you definitively concerned, a lot of districts continue to use both firms because there's a little bit of difference in the things that they bring to the table. But some schools exclusively, like we've exclusively used Baker Tilly, and some schools exclusively use Steve.
That was going to be my next question. So you could use both, or you could use either.
Yes.
Yes. What would be the benefit? That's something we can discuss too. Would be the benefit of just going with Steve? I mean,
That could be a question. And we would.
Baker Tilly's going to argue that they're going to save us money in the long run. The interest rates, you're on the other hand going to say you're going to save us money with fees. So I mean, it's 6 to 1, half to the other. I mean, it depends on what the day and what the numbers show.
Maybe the appropriate thing for me is to ask both groups to pull together rates of competitive and negotiated bids, the rates aspect, because the data you're presenting in terms of the underwriting fee, I mean, there's a potential huge savings. If you look at a issuance of the size that we're talking about, the issuance fees is really what we're looking at. And we've talked about that because all that issuance fee takes away from our capacity to impact, the final project. So
do that and then give us a 0.5% less than anyone else.
On the interest.
Yeah, on the interest, right? Let's do it. I'll sign right now.
you guys have other questions for Chad?
Thanks for the information.
Yeah.
Very eye-opening.
Very
eye-opening.
Yeah. And
Give me time.
I want to continue to talk with them about the long-term budget planning. And I talked with Chad very briefly, potentially about reviewing. We have internal documents with cash flows and how we manage cash internally that we've developed through working with IADA and other groups, but having an outside group potentially take a look at those might be worthwhile as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brings us to discussion item number 2, work session.
I sent a text a while back ago. We want to get together with the Meyer Najum team and the Barton Cove team. I want to invite the board in to get a further look at the level of detail that we moved to. We have recurring planning meetings on the Performing Arts Center every 2 weeks. We've moved the design documents and design budgets significantly. But I want to invite you guys in to get caught up to speed with there and to really weigh in on some high level things that are impacting cost estimates in terms of like brick finishes, interior finishes, some of those types of decisions, just to get some feedback and input. Originally, I'd offered July 29th or August 12th. Where we are right now, August 12th would probably be the preferred date of the teams. Could the board that's in front of me make August 12th? That puts you back-to-back Tuesdays with our vote on the project occurring on August 19th. But I would really like to get you in at least once with Meyer Najum and with Barton Cove prior to the board vote.
Actually taking
About probably, I would say 90 minutes. And I could get them ready by the 29th if that date works better for everybody.
what time we meet at 5:30.
I just assumed, but we can do whatever you guys would like to do.
Can you do 5:30 on 12?
Yep.
So pull the trigger on 12, 5:30.
And then maybe Chad, if you guys could shoot to get some numbers to me way before the 12th.
Yeah.
I could check that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the one post that as a work session.
Public comments. Superintendent comments.
We're sprinting towards the start of school. Still have a couple openings out there, teacher positions and aide positions, but we're excited. We've got a backpack carnival and in-person registration, and things are starting to line up, and we're just excited for the year to get started.
Very good. Board comments.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Thank you. Super excited to be here, and I'm going to follow up on your attendance question. If they have notes on file, you do not have to have those meetings. those meetings are more for at home students. Did a little bit more research here so I can answer that for you. But thank you. I'm excited to share.
She's hit the ground running. She's off to a great start.
If there's no other comments, then 6:35, this meeting is adjourned.
We're off YouTube.
On down.
Oh, you did. Thank you.